It's probably going to be really like tricky to get that right.
Yes.
To get an AI to be like truly compatible with our future values.
Yeah.
To be working with us, completely with us and ourselves in the future.
Just to be aligned. Yeah. To be aligned with. Yeah. What we would want to happen in the future. I mean,
how the hell do you code that into something? Because if we consider the scenario where you potentially have a quite a simple task that you've given it a goal to then run away with. Lots of people think to develop, as we said, to develop an ASI, you would have to give it like a goal to work on as to for a reason to come back and recursively improve itself to achieve that goal in a more efficient, like better, smarter way and make itself smarter to achieve that goal. If you couldn't just kind of like build it from ground up because it's just too complicated to do that.
Yeah.
Like in the way that people couldn't build computers like an AI system that would beat a human at Go. They had to do it so it was self-learning, essentially.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you couldn't program in like all the possible permutations
give it the trillions and trillions of different permutations.
No. It had to learn for itself. You had to give it the ability to learn for itself.
Yeah.
That's in the same way, as this. It would have to have something that's driving its ability to learn and also its ability to go back and make itself better at learning.
Yeah. And how do you make, because it is a very simple goal, how do you make a goal in which the computer is doing something, the AI is doing something that is going to benefit us in the future and not simply end up competing with us?
Yeah. It's real difficult. I mean, on the face of it, you might say something like, just tell it to maximize human happiness.
Yeah.
Like that's its goal, maximize human happiness.
Yeah.
But like maybe the end result of that is just taking humans apart into taking the brain out of the body and putting the brain in like a jar and just like stimulating the pleasure center of the brain forever.
Yeah. And like even could you even
because that's maximizing human happiness, right?
Yeah, but also like the goal. How do you like mathematically represent human happiness? Are people happy for different reasons? Like, what is human happiness?
Yes, but it might decide that
it's just dopamine levels or whatever.
Exactly.
So it just starts going, starts shoving dopamine in your face.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which might be alright.
Well, I mean, there's an argument that actually like but we'll talk about that in a bit later.
Yeah.
But maybe that wouldn't be as bad as people think. So that's a very tricky kind of thing to develop, and people have tried to do come up with ideas in which we might be able to, or kind of frameworks of theories.
Yeah. In
which we might be able to imbue an AI with a kind of consistent view of our moral development.
Exactly, it needs a moral sort of understanding of human morals that will change with us, because it's no good just programming into a computer now what we think of as like a moral behavior now. Well, because for a start, different people on different parts of the world have different ideas of what moral behavior is, and also 200 years in the future they'll probably look back on the way we behave to each other now as like barbaric and horrible for various reasons. So if you hardwire an AI now to have our morals now, we basically like set in stone that this society that we live in now is the framework for the rest of human development. So people in 200 years in the future are going to be living in some kind of like horrendous, like backwards, like old-fashioned hell, essentially. It'd be like us living in like
the 1600s forever.
1600s forever, yeah, exactly.
Which is obviously not great.
Having that enforced on us.
Yes, enforced on us. That's the key thing. So any like moral developments we naturally have as a society would be being constantly like slammed back down by the ASI. So you have to. There's this thing called Coherent Extrapolated Volition.
Yes, which is a bit of a mouthful.
Is that what it is?
Coherent Extrapolated Volition. Yeah. CEV. It's an attempt at trying to understand how you could possibly get a machine to, how do you even say it? Like what you said. For it to go through and undergo a moral evolution that is aligned with what we would do.
Yes.
And the way it does that
extrapolates our volition, like our will.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like asking, okay, what would people want to do in the future?
Yeah, at different time points in the future, and move along that development with us.
Yeah,
and continue to change its morals based on how we would change our morals.
Yes. It's asking what would people want to do in the future, which is obviously like a ridiculously hard thing to ask, even for just one person.
Yeah.
Because like that's something that we don't even know. Like we it's beyond our grasp to like work to be able to even predict and work out like what you want.
Yeah.
What you really want underneath everything.
Yeah.
Like, what do I really want from life?
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you can even really know. A machine's got to be able to do that. Like not just guess it, but like predict it, obviously within certain, like averages or whatever, certain like extrapolations. It's got to be able to predict that for a person and average that over like the entire of humanity.
Yes.
Which is just like unbelievably complex.
Yes, and so they're not. This is not a theory that's like saying this is a way we should definitely do it.
No.
It's more kind of just sort of saying this is the type of thing we're going to have to think about if we're not just going to give it a set of rules at the start.
Yeah, and all the questions that it raises, of which like there are a shitload, are like some of the one. Okay, so it's almost like an exercise in like, okay, these are the things that we're going to need to address. So for a start, like the whole coherent extrapolated volition, the coherent part of it implies that that there might be, some preference in humanity that's coherent. So like if you average over all humans in the entire world, that there's going to be like some kind of like directional coherence in what people would want to happen in the future.
Yeah, but you think about it, that's not that crazy to think about in the sense that there are some basic
there
things,
are some basic things, yeah, for
like
sure.
I mean, humans always they don't want to be hungry, they don't want to be cold, they want to have they want to be happy.
Yeah.
So there's like kind of these general kind of moral trends that no matter where people are from, they tend to want those same things.
Yes.
Except for like people with like crazy problems and stuff.
Yeah, but the crucial thing about the coherent extrapolated volition idea is the volition part of it. So it's not like, it's not just like looking at people and being like, okay, what would these people want to do next? Like, what would they want to happen like next week or next year or something? It's more like the volition part of it is like, it's really tricky to get your head around, but it's like, it's trying to build a model of like a future version of humans, the humans that are alive now, that know more than they do now. So like an ideal version of them, if they had a lot more knowledge and were a lot more like accepting of other people and a lot more sort of it's almost like Captain Hindsight from South Park, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so if we had hindsight, if our future selves could look back at now, knowing what they know, and be like, what should you do?
Yeah.
What would they say? It's kind of like a machine trying to guess that, to try and work out what our future selves, if our future selves were like much more intelligent than us and much more like worldly wise than us, what would they tell us to do?
Yeah.
I mean, how you code that into a machine is just probably impossible.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's a good kind of a sort of way of maybe trying to start to think about how we might kind of potentially build an AI that shares our goals and that continues to share our goals into the future.
Yeah.
But like realistically, I mean, like how do you know like what your extrapolated volition might look like? You can give something.
You can't test it.
You can't test it because you can say to the ASI, you can say to a machine to start building that thing. We think this is a way in which we'll get our extrapolated volition, and it will start doing it, but you have no idea if extrapolated volition comes back and says in the future everyone's going to be like mega racist, like that might be a thing that happens in the future that might actually be true, but we might decide it's not true, or like we have no idea of knowing that future thing until we get there. So there's no idea. You can never test it like definitively in one direction and say that is what our extrapolated volition would be. The worst thing is though, you can never know which one of those things is right, and if you've picked the right one. Problem is if you pick one of them, that's it. You only get one chance.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
So you can't even test a bunch of different ones and say this one looks like it's the most likely. No. You have one chance, because as soon as you let it go on its intelligence explosion with this kind of recursive self-improvement with a particular goal.
Yeah.
Whatever you've imbued it with, then it's gone. It's gone with whatever it's on, and you have no say in anything anymore potentially, because the ASI is an ASI and it controls everything. Yeah. So
you just get one shot at doing it.
You get one shot at doing something that's impossible with multiple shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's And also, like,
I think people who advocate the whole CEV thing, I'm not going to try and say the mouthful again. The CEV thing, they recognise that like that is a big problem.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah.
And they say that like, oh, maybe it's possible to. There's like a threshold if it looks for like coherence in like the future, like volition of all the people, and doesn't find like a certain threshold coherence, then it just shuts down. Then it's like, okay, I'm not going to act because there is no coherence, which is kind of a separate problem from what you were saying, because you're sort of saying that maybe it would find a coherence, and that coherence would be something that we would think is awful, is like terrible,
or we think it's right, but it's actually not right.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, but something that's good. That's the point of it. Is that something that's very, very good at extrapolating our volition.
Yeah.
We'd have to trust it in the sense that
we'd have to trust it.
We'd have to say, okay, like it's modeled a future version of ourselves, which in retrospect is saying that this is the right thing to do, even if we think right now it's not the right thing to do, which sounds a bit nuts, and which is why.
But we'll never know if that was right. If that was,
it's like walking off the edge of a fucking cliff. It's just like,
also,
all right, let's hope that there's a like mattress at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a scary thought, and the fact is that if you look out there, there's a friendly AI Wikipedia page, for example, and this is like the only like thing that's on there as like a way of doing it, and this is like it's fraught with problems.
Yes,
all these problems.
And there's like some. You might not have a coherent volition that it might consistently diverge, and it will never actually be able to use that as a particular way to go through an intelligence explosion, because it never finds that coherence.
Yeah, it might just be like, it doesn't exist. See you later. Yeah. But I think the original way it was proposed, or things like this get proposed, is that it's not something that's going to forever just be doing that and acting on it. I think the idea for it was that because it's impossible at this point to think of like a goal system or like a framework for a moral ASI, we designed something that essentially is like a rudimentary ASI that's capable of at least learning how to do coherent extrapolated volition, teaching itself how to do that, get better and better and better at it, with the express goal of designing the moral agent itself. That make sense?
But so
it just does that. That's what it's working towards, is to design the ASI that humanity would want if we knew how to build it. And once it's done that, then it probably becomes that. It probably then turns itself into that through recursive,
Yeah.
And we have no way of saying what that thing will be and what it will do.
Once it decides what our coherent, what our extrapolated volition is, like I was saying that it might decide something because we've made it in a particular way to decide that, and it may be right or wrong compared to if it hadn't existed. But like once it decides that is kind of the future anyway. So that is our extrapolated volition.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So maybe it just changes the future, and that our extrapolated volition is whatever its extrapolated volition was. If we never did, basically all I was saying though is if it didn't have something that was directing our extrapolated volition, the ASI didn't exist, then it may look different if the AI had existed, but we would never know until we got there.
Yeah.
And we would never know because you'd have to have two different like timelines essentially.
The other possibility is that if it is possible to do this, that it never finds, as we've mentioned before, it never finds like a full, like a really strong consensus, coherent thing. Instead, just finds like small ones that are minor, and eventually, what we end up having is like essentially like an oracle kind of situation, where we have something that's very super intelligent, but it can never quite make like a decision to do a big action. And it just does small things that just sort of incrementally speed up like our development.
To be honest,
not just like absolutely crazily.
To be honest, though, that's not too bad.
No, that's not too bad. Because that's potentially a really, really good outcome.
If that is the outcome of trying to encode like an extrapolated volition, that might even be desirable.
Yeah.
Because you would stop it. You would put like a brake on it trying to kind of go through its own crazy extrapolation that we don't know if it would be what we would want in the end.
Yeah.
Like when we even got there, it might think it's what we want, but actually when we get there, we might not want it. Maybe it's better to code something into it that means that it has to put the brakes on that kind of moral development and becomes much more benign and kind of submissive to answering questions. I doubt that could happen though.
Yeah, that's the thing. It will recursively self-learn, and it will exponentially increase its intelligence and get to a point where it's realised that it understands the fundamental basis to human moral evolution.
Yeah.
not just thinks it does understand it.
Yeah.
Like it's modeled it perfectly.
Yeah,
It knows exactly how it works.
Yeah.
And suddenly, within a few hours or a few days or weeks or whatever, it's got to that point. Now it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and that's it. It's happening. I'm going to make this drastic change to the world because your extrapolated volition tells me to do that.
Yeah.
This is the coherent, and we think it's mental. We're like, no, but it's too late. It's happening. It's happening. And then, you're right. That then becomes the future, regardless of whether we think that's a realistic version of the future or not. It doesn't matter anymore because it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to think about. But what essentially what this all tells you is that it's incredibly hard potentially to build something that has gone through an intelligence explosion that is going to be expressly aligned with benefiting us, aligned with our goals, because essentially, because we just explained, there's loads of different systems in which you would have. Well, I'm not going to go through it again. But it's potentially extremely difficult.
Difficult to the point of seeming impossible.
Yeah.
So
maybe you get one shot at it.
Maybe what we should do then is give it a very simple goal of maximize human happiness, because then at least with that we'll end up happy. Even if it's just like a chemical happiness, but then what else is happiness? Exactly.
So obviously, you said earlier the example of if you developed an AI and you gave it the ability to, its express goal was to improve human happiness, and it ended up just sticking every brain in a like Futurama style glass thing, and pumping them full of dopamine and good thoughts and good neuron firings that make it happy. Is that, considering the huge difficulties involved with trying to extrapolate volition, all this other stuff, is that actually what we should just settle for? Is that actually that bad even? I mean, you'll just be you'd be like the Matrix, but good.
Way better than that. Like the Matrix, but without any of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And not the Matrix is just the world, the people, the actual Matrix program themselves.
Well, the Matrix program,
people walking around in the normal world.
Well, in the film,
whereas this would be so it could potentially be you're almost unconscious apart from just pure pleasure.
Yeah.
But if there is a level of consciousness, you could just be on some kind of weird multi-dimensional sort of.
You just be doing whatever your
bliss.
Whatever your individual brain's
bliss.
Volition is. It would be just doing whatever it wanted to do, where in totally blissful way.
Yeah, and some sublime sort of otherworldly existence that doesn't have any rooting in what we think of as reality now, but it's just constant happiness.
Yes.
And in a way that even really pleasurable things that you experience now that make you really happy, if you do them again and again and again,
it fails to eventually.
It fails to eventually. You get sick of it.
Yeah.
But with this, it would just be constant.
It'd be succeed every time.
The maximum level of happiness.
Because if you eat 50 Mars bars, eventually you get sick of them because they're no longer releasing dopamine or whatever in your brain. But this it is literally pleasure. It's literally injecting things into you. So
solid gold pleasure.
Yeah, so you don't get bored of that. But then, so in the Matrix, when you brought that up earlier, in the film when they're talking to one of the agents, they say that they didn't design. Originally, they designed Matrix as a purely positive place.
Yes.
But then decided that it didn't work because humans rejected it because it was too perfect or whatever. So they made essentially the modern world. I mean, that's obviously it's just the Matrix.
Just the Matrix. I mean, maybe there's something to that, but an ASI would probably
be able to deal with that and sort that out, and just basically make it so there was just enough bad stuff happening that you could maximize the good stuff without making the brain mush.
Yeah.
Is that bad? Is that if everything goes wrong? And if considering how difficult it is and how dangerous it is developing an ASI, should we just accept that as the future? Because the chances are, if we try and do anything else, we might end up with something a lot worse.
I mean, I think a lot of people react badly to that.
Would do, yeah, I agree, yeah.
But when you really think about it, why? Why do you do anything in life ever?
Yeah, to be happy.
To be happy, and this is
it's continual happiness.
The ultimate maximum happiness forever. So in that sense, it's yeah, sure, why not? Let's bring it on. But there is a part of me, like that kind of human part of me,
that doesn't want to
recoils from it a bit.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, but I want to. I know. I much prefer the scenario of
I want to achieve things for myself,
like,
and have things that are real. And
yeah, I like the scenario of like a genie AI or whatever that can solve death, and like I live for like hundreds of years and like travel the solar system and do all that stuff like as me. But maybe you could do all that in a better way and be maximized as a brain in a jar, just like virtually somehow, and like 10 times, a million times as fulfilling and satisfying.
Maybe the whole universe is a simulation anyway. So
well, yeah, maybe.